Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
I'm trying to change this up and make it fun. Today we're going to be talking about day trips. We're actually starting with the ruins and castle. And it's one, or not a castle. It's like, I guess a palace city thing. And we wanted to do that because the seaside ones are a bit more common. We've talked about them before, and we were kind of going to, instead of talking about why you should go, more how to get there. With these, while there's definitely going to be some how to get there, it's going to be predominantly also why you should go, because I thought, like, you know what, let's shine a light on some of these places, especially if we only touched on them very briefly in the past. However, before we get started, just want to say a very big thank you to everyone who's been leaving reviews and following along. If you enjoy the podcast and you'd like us to continue making podcasts, you can also follow along and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere that you listen to our voices. If you'd like to check out some articles, we have a website, onlyabag.com, where you have loaded with articles. You can also send us a message, question, comment. Do you have a question about your upcoming trip? You can send us a message there or on Instagram at onlyabagpodcast. Last but not least, if you'd like to support us financially, you can do so at ko-fi.com/onlyabag, which is coffee.com, as well as using our affiliate links, which just gives us a little kickback from the whatever you booked through Booking, or I was going to say Asiago. That is a cheese.
Oh, Mio?
Oh, Mio, and
Agoda?
then Agoda. Thank you, Agoda. I was like, man, that's lunchtime again. So if you book through one of those, you will. We make a portion of their money, not yours. So I mean, it's your money, but you're not paying more. Terrible explanation. So you're welcome. All right. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's talk about. I guess let's go. Getting out of the way early, Pompeii, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the number one place people tell you to go.
That is the number one place
when you're visiting Naples.
It is worth it, obviously. And we're only spending a couple seconds on it, but essentially, first getting there, the Circumvesuviana or the Campania Express are both trains. Circumvesuviana, more like a metro than a train. It is not something you can book a seat. It does not have air conditioning. It does not have a luggage rack. If you're going there and staying at Pompeii, it's going to be essentially in a metro. It's very much like 1980s old school sort of subway. The Campania Express is a lot more new school. It's a lot more expensive. It's like 15 instead of like 3, I think, on the Circumvesuviana. But you do get a dedicated seat. You do get luggage space. It has air conditioning, and it only runs to like Herculaneum, Pompeii, Sorrento, and a few others that are big sort of visit, like tourism. It's a tourism train, essentially. Not essentially in actual development. It was a tourism train. So for visiting, the train's the easiest way. You can also take the bus if you have something if you have like a tour bus or something like that, but I would recommend the train because it literally drops you. Both of those, Circumvesuviana and the Campania Express, drop you literally at the front door to the park. However, if you take like the Trenitalia train, it does not. It drops you sort of in Pompeii, the town. So it's a little bit not close necessarily. But you're at the front door. Well worth it. The only real note I wanted to make is potentially, unless you are okay with massive crowds, avoid it on free days. We talked about this before. They're now capping the amount of entries per day, and especially seems to affect free days more than paid days because it's at a couple thousand people per day. But they're essentially like, we only hit this in the height of summer or on free days, and in free days, even in like on the off season, can be just a mad house. So I highly recommend avoiding it on a free day, but it's still I think totally worth visiting.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely incredible. One note is that there's not a lot of shade.
Yes.
It's basically completely open. So in the summer, it's going to be very hot. When it's raining, it's hard to find cover. It's possible, but that's just a note.
Yeah. No, that's a great note. Yeah. If you're going the height of summer, it's going to be a toasty day. Mm-hmm. And then, so moving along, I apologize. If I'm going too fast, I do apologize.
No, I think that's good. We've talked about Pompeii before.
Okay. I wanted to make sure.
And have we ever done a whole episode on it?
Not really, but
maybe one day we will, because there's a lot there.
I was thinking I was nervous because we're not historians, so I was like,
it's a good point.
So what does this thing mean? We don't know.
But it's very cool. There's a lot to it. So 100% recommend you visit Pompeii.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think actually on that note, Herculaneum, which we also have talked even less about than Pompeii, is actually before Pompeii on the train. So if you get on the Circumvesuviana or the Campania Express, you stop off earlier. If you're on the Campania Express, by the way, and you're really into seeing ruins of Herculaneum and Pompeii, that ticket allows you, so you can get back on the train as long as you're going in the same direction. So it is, because it's an expensive ticket, it's designed, if you're going from Naples to Herculaneum, you get off, explore Herculaneum, get back on the train, and as long as you're going towards Pompeii and not back towards Naples, you can use the same ticket, and then go all the way to Sorrento. So essentially, if you're like, I want to go here, 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 and here, totally fine. However, if you're going to go back after just one, you have to get a new ticket.
Okay.
I love that sound. That was still disapproving.
I just don't. I wish you could go back and forth. So if you wanted to start with Pompeii, then come back towards Herculaneum and back to
Yes.
Naples, that would make sense.
Yes, that would be. But
that's not
you can
how
pitch
it
it to
is.
them, actually. That's not a bad
Okay,
idea.
thank you. I will.
So it was actually discovered 50 years before they discovered Pompeii. I thought was interesting. And then about 25 years after that is when they actually excavated Pompeii, because they discovered it and then excavated. They actually found Herculaneum while digging for a well or drilling for a well. And then I think they went through somebody's roof and they're like, what have we found? They stole a bunch of stuff. And actually that's
Alrighty.
literally the history of, I think, Herculaneum and kind of Pompeii. But I think Pompeii, at least when it was first discovered, had a bit more. I mean, again, we're talking like 70 years later when they fully started excavating it, late 18th century. So there's a bit more of like, we should probably protect some of these things, not just like let people just take things. And that was unfortunate with Herculaneum. I think at the beginning, a lot of it was just taking things. Interestingly, though, there are, in theory, in practice, I don't think this is necessary. Basically, Pompeii was hit hard, right? Very little warning, hit hard. And it was hit like
By the eruption
Vesuvius.
of Vesuvius.
Yeah, and it was basically 1 p.m. I think on October 17th is what the date that people think it is now. It used to be they thought it was August. We talked about this before. Essentially, there's a lot of like, there's no way it could be August. That's insane. And the reason we thought it was August is a historian, I think it was Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger, wrote saying it was August. And everyone's like, are you an idiot? How could it be August? That's impossible.
Because he also wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but
Right. So, but we were, I think, still basing a lot of like, oh, he must have done some research. And everyone's like, bad research.
But shall we say why people think it was later?
Well, yes, you say, and then actually I'll add one more. But yes.
It's been a long time since I've learned this, but it is because of the food that was preserved in jars and such. So it was like wine?
I think they're already fermenting wine. Wax seals were already applied to the earthenware jars, which is usually when you're going to start fermenting it, you're not going to unseal it. Figs were dried instead of fresh. And then they actually were wearing heavier clothing. So it's like, it's a very heavy clothing for August. But I thought was interesting is a woman in Herculaneum was found with a coin in her coin purse that was, it was basically of the new emperor. And it could not have been minted in before the second week of September of that year. So like it was impossible for this to be in her coin purse before the second week of September, because everything else was kind of circumstantial. Like, okay, yes, they could have picked figs earlier. It could have been a cold year. It could have been but that is something that like you can't
concrete.
Yeah, so that was really fascinating.
Wow, cool.
And so Herculaneum is the wealthier of the two cities, and whereas Pompeii was hit hard at 1 p.m. on October 17th, with just basically the debris falling onto the city, Herculaneum was actually not. It was only hit with ash, but it was enough to make most people get out because they thought this is going to be bad. It was 1 a.m. that night that the pyroclastic flow actually hit Herculaneum properly.
Interesting.
And it did, some of it preserved, some of it destroyed outright, but because it like apparently the flow carbonized before actually hitting Herculaneum, what happened is instead of burning a lot of plant and paper goods to ash, it actually preserved them. So a lot of the papyruses are preserved. Exactly. A lot of the foodstuffs, a lot of the plant fibers are preserved, or that we have are actually preserved from Herculaneum rather than Pompeii, which I thought was fascinating. Of course, it's apparently very difficult to we talked about this before, actually, pigeon poop is one of the main reasons that it's very difficult to preserve Herculaneum. As soon as it's exposed, it does start deteriorating quickly, partly because of these, I think robbers is the term used, like basically people going in and just stealing things. Not necessarily the people of Ercolano, which is the modern day town. It was just people coming, visiting, and stealing things.
Right.
Or people like, I'm saying people, I don't know if it's like specifically like backed groups, but it looks like they were funding people to go and steal things for their house,
so it was
kind
like
of thing.
organized.
Well, I feel like that's what a lot of it would like. I feel like, not I feel like, but using other times as examples, like whether it's Pompeii or whether it's just people robbing tombs in Egypt,
course.
it's like you put together, you pay for somebody to go and bring you back things to decorate your house with. So it's like, all right, that seems not awesome. But interestingly, I found the two interesting things I found is that, so at the beginning, it was basically stealing artifacts, which on the one hand, though, arguably did preserve the artifacts. Because once they were stolen, people did not want them to just, they paid money for them. And then later, it was actually trying to preserve the buildings, which is what they're still doing, and which is why they've actually halted the excavation. For whatever reason, they're not halting excavation not for whatever reason, Ercolano or Herculaneum is closer to the water, and I think that makes it harder to preserve. Pompeii seems to be a little bit easier to preserve, so they're still excavating and then preserving it as they go along. Herculaneum is a little bit less. There's also far less money in it, both from the visitors and in terms of just like federal / EU money in it, and it's actually a private fund that's been doing a lot of the preserving.
Wow.
But in the 80s, under Sarah Beisel, she was the curator at the time of this. She was actually the one who's like, we should probably start preserving the bodies rather than the stuff. So that's actually, it's under her they started preserving the bodies, because I think you mentioned on one episode for Herculaneum, they found 300 people basically killed in a boathouse and near the shore. They were just hiding and obviously did not make it. And that, so I was saying that's like, even though people had a warning, like a 12-hour warning to get out, I think if you couldn't really, I mean, like, it's also
couldn't go anywhere.
That was the thing. It felt like you either can't go anywhere, or you don't have the money to go anywhere, or you're like, what are you going to walk? Like, by the time ash is falling from the sky.
Exactly. I think it's also my understanding, again, not a historian, but it's my understanding that Vesuvius rumbled fairly often. So it wasn't abnormal for a day like this to happen. And they just didn't, obviously no one knew how bad it was going to be. So by the time they realized what kind of emergency it was too late for a lot of people.
And I think that's exactly it. And I think that is exactly it. The other thing I thought was fascinating is, if you wanted, we've talked about this before with Paestum, which we haven't done a full episode, which we should, but it's beautiful because it's a Greek colony turned city, and there are still these really deep grooves in the roads there from where the carts, just over years and years and years of the carts, have dug these deep grooves. Herculaneum is like that. They have these deep grooves in the roads that are not intentional. They didn't dig grooves to make it. It's like, it's just, that's what happened. But I also thought it was interesting. You can still see some lead piping, like that's coming through the ground for where they carried the water to the houses. Because these are, again, much wealthier houses.
Super cool.
So that's a big, I thought that was kind of a fun thing of like getting to see like little bits of the past, basically, at Herculaneum. Moving to the northeast, if I'm trying to do this, cardinal directions, y'all, are just not my strong suit. I don't understand. I can do left and right without a problem.
Northeast.
It is the northeast. Okay. Is Caserta. It's the royal palace of Caserta. We talked about this before. I have this weird love of Caserta, despite the fact I've never actually been there. And despite the fact I've been through the town of Caserta, I think, once, and I didn't love it because it's not a town you should go to.
It's just like a 1980s sort of modern town.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it's very modern.
Okay.
I think it's technically a part of it. Some is 1800s because it was built up around the royal palace of Caserta.
Did I say 1800s?
You said 80s.
Yes. Okay. I thought so.
So yeah, and then but I think later as it expanded, it just, because it's flat, so it just exploded in growth.
Got it.
When people were moving from, I think, what is now called Caserta Vecchia, which is the old Caserta, down the hill or down the mountain to new Caserta, so it's just like a population explosion.
Okay.
I think it's just cool because it's just one of those things that is just like an interesting beer. One, it's been in a lot of movies. That's I think first and foremost. If you've seen Star Wars, the prequels, okay, not the great ones. Have you seen the prequels of Star Wars? Have you seen Chaos, the TV show on Netflix? Conclave, Two Popes, Mission Impossible 3, Angels and Demons. Essentially, if you've seen the Vatican, in the inside of the Vatican in a movie, it's almost certainly
It's like that big staircase that is in so many movies, right?
It's called the Staircase of Honor, apparently.
Yeah. And so that was in Chaos. It's part of Zeus's house.
Yeah.
In what is the Vatican movie?
Conclave.
It's part of the Vatican. It's insane. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's basically the crowning achievement of the Baroque era kind of thing is what it's called. And actually, one of the reasons it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site was basically it's like it is the peak of Baroque. Then before it kind of went down, and it was essentially the king of
Baroque.
Before Baroque. Oh my God.
It never broke, but yeah.
That was, I love that. And actually, speaking of it being broke, no, that's not a segue. Nah, it doesn't work. Never mind. I was gonna say no. The reason it was actually built is the king at the time thought that Naples was too revolt prone and wanted to, and I was like, yeah, it is. They will.
Probably for good reason.
Yeah. So he wanted to build this thing outside of Naples and house a garrison there to protect him and things like that. Hired a guy who's very influenced by Versailles, the Palace of Versailles.
Makes sense.
But what I thought was interesting is that I don't really know much about Versailles or France or Paris in general, but one of the shortfalls is essentially it's just a summer home. It's difficult to actually do business there. The government visiting and things like that you couldn't run the country. I mean, I think Louis XVI tried, but it was difficult to run the country. So this guy was like, I want to solve that problem. So he wanted to create a place where libraries could exist, university could exist, the government officials could exist, undersecretaries and secretaries, cabinet ministers, all of that could all live and exist in this place. So essentially he was creating a city, a town, if you will, from scratch, but it was a royal town from scratch, which I thought was kind of fascinating. And actually, on the property, instead of knocking it down or buying it and destroying it, there's a silk factory that they disguised as a gazebo because they didn't want to see it, I guess. So they're just like, that's just not yours, but we're just going to leave that there, which I thought was really funny. Yeah, it is wild. It's actually the largest former royal residence in the world. I don't know if that means like Buckingham Palace. I don't know if there's a current royal residence that's larger. I also know that with like, if this isn't the same thing as like Saudi royalty or something like that, there are probably some massive residencies somewhere, but this is the largest of the former royal residencies. So it's just a huge amount of space, huge amount of garden and green space, basically. So, I thought it was interesting. It did have a bit of a sad history. I think later, speaking of it going Baroque, the guy who wanted it built never actually lived there. He actually was he stepped down as king. He not deposed, but anyway, gave up the king position. Okay. There's a word for that I'm spacing on now. Abdicated the throne. Oh, thank you, Darcy. Yes.
You're welcome.
New York Times crossword puzzle champion right here. And became the king of Spain instead. So I think it was like, I don't know, it's like shifting jobs, moving up in the thing. I know. I'm like, yo, nobody was like, do you want to be king of Spain instead of whatever you're doing as a day job? That's amazing. And so he actually never got to live there, even though he was in love with it. He was like, when he first saw the plans for it, he was like, it filled my heart with so much passion. It was burst out of my chest. And I love that. Like he sees a building and he's like, oh, gorgeous. Never got to actually see it or live in there. And then essentially it got like kind of just fell in disrepair. People weren't really using it. It was bombed. That I think the Nazis used it as a base in the 40s. It was bombed in also the 40s, and then ended up being used as a location for the war crimes trials. The Allied ran the war crimes trials from there, not the Nuremberg ones. Obviously, that was Nuremberg, but it was specifically for the Mediterranean theater. It seems like.
Wow, interesting.
Ended up executing people in Aversa, which I thought was interesting. People being specifically German ranking officers and officials. And from there, though, it really did fall into disuse. It was basically looted completely stripped. They aren't really sure who looted it. Like, essentially, it's like some people assume the Nazis because they're looting everything at the time. Some people assume, like, maybe some, Allied soldiers made off with it or whatever's left. And, it was like, it's really nothing. Nobody's keeping track of these things, essentially. And legitimately, it was a locked door preventing people from stealing what was there. So they've done as much as they could since then, especially since, like, the late 80s, to sort of renovate, rebuild, try to make it the same, try to gold leaf what was gold leafed, things like that. Wow. And whatever they can't replace, they have made reproductions of. So it's unfortunate that, like, I mean, a lot of obviously the staircase and things like that are just gorgeous, and it's an integral part of the structure. But it's like, the chairs and the paintings and everything else was just
all the bits and bobs. Yeah,
exactly. So it's unfortunate, but again, going back to that sort of thing where, I don't know, sometimes I think like Italy it's not the wealth of the North, where it's like there would have just been a constant kind of, not constant, but some of the places I think in the North got that sort of like, there was money, there's always somebody watching over it, there's always somebody protecting it kind of thing. So we have certain pieces, and I think the South just got like, somebody died, left it, and then it got stolen kind of thing. So moving along, since we're already at 18 minutes, a few other places I want to touch on, if that's good. I guess first is the Cumae. We've talked about this in the last week's episode. I think I briefly touched on it just in terms of the history of Naples. Fascinating little place. Just genuinely a fascinating place because...
Where is it exactly?
West of Naples, on the coast.
But on like the mainland of Italy? Or
on the mainland of Italy, yeah. And so I love, by the way, so I mentioned, and I did more research on this because I was also fascinating. It is the first Greek colony of Magna Graecia on mainland Italy. Again, just it's even this sort of like this like a colonist mindset even back then. It was sort of, even the way it's written now makes it think like there's nothing else there, and they're like right next door to this like a non-Oscan settlement, but it was a pre-Oscan settlement, like Austinite, I think. So I'm like, oh, so next door
to the native people,
who were already there, who are already living. Okay, got it. So you guys just whatever, fine. And what I find, so that was just one that I found fascinating, because again, all these things are written like they found this undiscovered land. Like, no, it was very much next door to people who were already living there. But what was fascinating to me, one, it was founded from the settlers of I'm definitely going to pronounce this, Eobeia, modern day Evia, which is a pretty large island to the right of Greece. Okay. So I want to, like, just for geographic purposes, they went from the east of Greece, the right of Greece, around Greece, down, around Italy, to the left of Italy.
They went a long way.
I'm like, y'all just love being on a boat. I think this is just an excuse to be on a boat the whole time. Y'all could have made land at any other point. So they founded there. And actually, there were in what is now modern day Ischia was a Greek settlement as well. So they went to Ischia first and like, guys, we have the perfect place for you. It's a little hill, gorgeous view. It's got some green land, absolutely beautiful. There's nobody to live next door that you have to worry about. We're just going to fight them in a minute. And that's essentially what they ended up doing. And actually later ended up losing. It was great. I won't, too much history to get into, but what I thought was fascinating is, so when they say the first Greek colony in mainland Italy, like swimmable distance from Italy was a Greek colony, but they're like, well, that's not mainland Italy. That's an island. It doesn't count. That's like, so it's the first mainland one, which I thought was just kind of fascinating. The ruins are still there, but the reason I wanted to mention it is for a couple of reasons. But one, there are still ruins. A lot of the stuff that was saved is in the Campi Flegrei Museum, which houses essentially a lot of the sort of archaeological finds from that area. It's a very ancient area just in general in Italy, both pre-Greek and also Greek to Roman. So it's got a lot of interesting things. It's also, I think, the Campi Flegrei has a museum that also is dedicated to the caldera as well. If we talked about before, these giant bubbles underneath the earth that fill up and slowly expand and contract and raise and drop the water level, and potentially are one day going to erupt and cause a massive explosion, because we're apparently very overdue
Eruption?
for one. Yeah, but like more explosion than eruption.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it's one of these. It was a scientific website that I was looking at, and I say that because
And
they're
it said explosion.
they said like a pimple popping. So I was like, oh, this is fun. They're like, it's gonna be just.
That's what they said on a scientific website?
Yeah, and I was like,
Okay.
I think they're like, how do we explain this to the layperson? And like, you've seen a pimple.
Yeah, I mean, they did it. I get it.
So, because actually the last time it erupted, they found ash from there in northern Russia, or it is now northern Russia.
Right.
So they're like, this is going to be big. And that's why every time a thing, people are like, can we like pop it beforehand? Like, is there anything we could do? And it does pop itself beforehand. I already hate this pimple thing. I'm so sorry. I'm moving
Yeah,
on.
let's not say that anymore.
And it's actually, so it became sort of a major source of power and influence in Italy. It's just both when the Romans later were doing the Roman stuff, they were trading, they were kind of fighting, they were the Campanian people got together and fought Cumae. It was this whole, I mean, it was basically this sort of epicenter for many, many, many years. And in fact, a group from there, when it got large enough, went on to found Zenkel, which sounds like an app, and I'm definitely mispronouncing it.
That's a
Zencle.
real place?
It is now called Messina,
Okay.
which is a major port city in Siena. It's in Sicily. It's actually where you go through on the ferry. If you're going to take the ferry or the boat, you will probably go to Messina. But it was originally called Zenkel, which I do love. That.
Zancle?
It could be Zancle. Could be like anklet, but for singles. I don't understand. But the two interesting things I found were one, or that I thought were interesting from mythology specifically, is Avernus is next to Cumae, and in Roman in specifically Roman Greek mythology, but even like in like things that are inspired by Greek mythology, such as Dungeons and Dragons, there's a very popular expansion called Descent into Avernus, which is Descent into Hell, and arguably, and it's in Dungeons and Dragons. One of the layers of hell is called Avernus. Somebody who is into Dungeons and Dragons is going to actually message me and be like, "You got this wrong," and I'm like, "I know. It's technically one of the 9 hells. I don't know. Please don't. I don't know, but I don't know that much about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry, but it is fascinating to me because actually the Avernus was one of the entrances to the underworld in the sort of the Roman Greek times, basically. Okay. I think Greek and then Romans were like, yeah, that tracks. We believe that too. And so was, interestingly, a lot of people have heard of the Oracle of Delphi.
Yeah.
She was a major Greek oracle. There's also, I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. There's one, she was Turkish, but also a major Greek, or is it like Turkish Greek, but also a major Greek oracle. But the Sibyl, basically the Sibyl is, I think, the word for prophetess or oracle, but essentially the Cumaean Sibyl was from Cumae, and basically was immortalized in Virgil's work, because Virgil's like, this person, I mean, she is just predicting everything right, and everyone's like, oh, so she must be like god tier kind of thing. And so she became quite famous. There's a cave there. You can visit her cave where she lived. Whole thing.
I want to go visit.
You can visit the entrance to the underworld. She's been painted though also a bunch of times. She's in the Sistine Chapel. She's in like Raphael. All these people in the Renaissance were re-inspired by her. So added all these paintings. But I thought it was fascinating again because it's this very tiny area, essentially, quite literally like footprint wise, super small, that ended up having a massive like political and social effect on literally the sort of the Mediterranean world, basically, for a while. And sort of on that note, sort of related to that note, is Virgil's tomb. We mentioned this before. on the couple last week's, I think, episode. And it is not the tomb of Virgil necessarily, because apparently his ashes were lost, sort of misplaced in transit kind of situation.
Okay, so what is this?
It was the tomb of Virgil.
Okay.
So Virgil is we've mentioned he is famous for putting an egg under a castle, as well as other things.
Yeah.
Very famous writer.
Pretty much that.
I know.
It's the egg thing.
It's like I've always heard of Virgil, like just in the sort of background of like, yeah, Virgil, yeah.
People like reference him.
But like, I had no idea how much Virgil's like the guy. It was like, that was, oh yeah. And I'm like, but again, every time I look into him, I'm like, oh, it's gotta be something I'm missing. No. Writer. Like, there's what else? Come on. He's just like, oh, this guy's a real wordsmith. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
He made me feel things. So I mean, I really don't understand. But point is, Virgil's tomb. You can visit Virgil's tomb. He died in Brindisi, which is in Puglia.
Yes.
So he died in Puglia. He was burned in Puglia, not like to
He was
death.
cremated.
That's the one. Thank you. He was. We have different words for that, Nathaniel. Speaking of wordsmiths, he was cremated.
You are a writer.
Not a very good one. Okay, I'm no Virgil. And he was cremated in Brindisi and transported to Naples. He arrived successfully, no worries.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to be buried, sort of entombed in his villa in Naples, and so they did. But what I thought was fascinating is they actually gave him a Greek hero funeral rites, because I learned so much doing this. Hero, English word, comes from the Greek word hero, which is essentially Heracles or Hercules, which is the Roman word for it. But essentially somebody who had one god parent and one human parent was a hero, modern day, like that period is a hero. And so he was considered to have a god parent and given this crazy funeral rites.
Wow.
Whole thing. I mean, it's actually, you can visit his tomb. It's in the, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, Crypta Napoletana. It's these, it's not the catacombs that we mentioned. It's this underground tunnel that was supposed to connect Naples with Pozzuoli.
Okay.
And because to get there previously, it's a modern day Pozzuoli. It used to be called Portoli. I think it's Portoli. And to get there previously, it was this weird through the marsh thing. It was a nightmare. People hated it. So they built all these roads, and finally they're like, what if we just went like through the earth? And
Naples is all about going underground.
I know, they love it.
They really love to
And I wonder
tunnel.
if like the tufa stone's like soft enough or something, because I honestly do not know. I'm like, it's a tunnel. It's not just like a tunnel. It's a tunnel. They put some work into this. So if he's actually buried near or in the not underground, but it's like, I think the tunnel ends technically where his tomb is, and part of it is visitable. Not all of it is. Not all the tunnel is exploratory. It's one of those things. Again, I think they don't really know what to do with, and it's also they don't want to fall on anybody and collapse. So they're kind of like, hey, you can visit some of it, not all of it.
Weird.
I thought it was kind of interesting, but it's sort of just near that. But he had this tomb. Outside was a bay leaf tree,
Okay.
And so I thought it was interesting because when Dante, the writer, died, the bay tree died. Or at least that's what the legend, as to the legend goes, is when
That
Dante
specific
died. Yeah,
bay
this
tree
bay
died.
tree also died. And so Petrarch, which is one of the early humanists. He's a cardinal. He was a monk, and he was one of the early humanists. He was basically one of those people like, maybe we should, like, I don't know, treat each other better. And people are like, you're kind of a bad man. He planted another bay tree. And over time, people visiting the tomb just would take branches from the bay tree, and finally that bay tree died too. Which,
Yeah, that's not cool.
this has all been an ad for why over-tourism is terrible. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, but so that, unfortunately, the bay tree is dead. So there's no more bay tree outside of Virgil's temple. I think
Can we
nobody's...
plant a new one?
I think somebody should, right? And there's no way that everybody took a bay leaf tree and then, like, nobody else planted it, right? That'd be crazy. Like, nobody took a sample, like, oh, I should plant this to be like, this is from... Anyway,
I mean, there's a lot of bay all over Italy. We could.
that's what I'm thinking.
It grows well. Let's do it.
Right.
We'll
I think
contact someone.
We'll plant the tree. And then, so inside is still a tripod dedicated to Apollo, where there would have been a burning flame, basically, would have been tended to a burning flame. Because as rites of a hero kind of thing, it's like one of the things you get.
Underground.
Kind of underground in the tomb, but not underground. The tomb's actually quite tall. It's very weird. It's
Okay.
hard to explain. It's kind of like if the ground is, I'm using my hands to explain, which is a really awful way to do so on a only audio medium. But essentially, it looks like from the photos, because I haven't actually visited. I'd love to visit that. It's technically underground, but they kind of carved out the area around it too, and so his tomb is sticking up, sort of like a obelisk, like a
Okay.
type thing. And so inside the tomb is still this tripod. And then during the Middle Ages, they were transporting his ashes and they were lost. I do not know what that means. This feels like a very awkward conversation to have with somebody who's like, so you remember when you got me to get the Virgil's ashes? I lost them. I don't know if it's kind of like a UPS truck or a U-Haul truck getting lost in the move, or if it's like
He fell off the wagon.
I honestly
I don't mean
know.
that in a silly way. I just thinking
Like, does he have a little chest? They just fell off, and like that can't be an important one, right? Like Virgil's ashes would have been a bigger, more important chest. So, unfortunately, his ashes are lost, and I don't know if they found them.
It sounds like they have not.
It sounds like they have not. They're not doing a good job.
This is wild looking. I mean, I looked up a picture to understand the tomb situation.
But it's kind of an interest, yeah.
Yes, it is like a building that comes out of the ground.
But it's surrounded by ground,
Yes.
right? Okay. At least what I saw was like kind of like it was almost the ground around it, if that makes sense. Darcy's now showing me the photo. We could do this better. But see, you see what I mean? Like, so around it is like the wall
Is
of
ground.
yeah. So it's essentially they carved around this and left this structure as a tomb.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Interesting.
It's genuinely, yeah. So if you're in
I
the
imagine
area,
though, like originally, it probably would have looked a bit like a mausoleum looks these days.
exactly. That's
Okay.
probably that a much better mausoleum. Virgil's mausoleum, much better word. We should pitch that to them too. We have a lot of pitches. We're just gonna start sending them out and see what happens.
Very much related to Virgil's tomb.
Yes, that's two of the major ones. And I think that was everything. I just thought that was actually much closer. Again, that is really quite close to Naples. That's really not even a day trip. That's like a afternoon trip.
For
but
sure.
It's something that's fascinating if you're into history or writers or anything at all. I mean, they're like even the Sibyl, the Cumaean Sibyl, Sibyl of Cumae. It just seems if you're interested at all in sort of just basically prophetesses, and people who saw the future and were really popular in her time, and you want to go visit her cave, you can do so.
I do want to. Let's go.
Right? And also the entrance to the underworld's right next to that.
I want to maybe look at that one from afar.
Yeah.
Just in
it's
case.
It's now a lake, I think. It was a crater. It's now a lake. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to get to the underworld. I'm like, do you go through the water?
That sounds terrifying.
It's very unclear. But there's also like a temple of Zeus there, a temple of Apollo, temple of this. It was like all these temples. I mean, it was very much a very, very, very built up, powerful place. And right now, again, it's like these ruins that almost nobody knows about. There's enough. I mean, in Italy they do, but I mean, like in the world, it's kind of like, oh yeah. But it's interesting.
Right, it's not like a major tourist site, essentially.
Exactly. And it was once the seat of, and from there again started all these other cities. Naples started from there, or Messina started from there, and all these other places started from there. So I think that was kind of interesting where how much, just
power was held in that one spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fascinating. And again, now it makes sense why the Iliad, the Odyssey would have been based the story around there, because it was already such a fame. Because I was thinking like maybe people don't know, but if the entire coast, it was happening. It's like people love this area. And also, I need to be Virgil. I assume that's what Homer was thinking.
Ah, okay.
I'm assuming Homer probably came way before Virgil, but he's like, there's going to be some guy named Virgil coming after me, and I'm going to be better than him.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Thank you. That was just me just rambling on.
Some really interesting day trips. A lot of them are very close.
Super close, super doable, super easy. It's also, I mean, again, if you have kids or if you're traveling with a partner, but I think with kids, a lot of them are kind of interesting. Like even in Caserta, I believe there's a armory. I didn't mention that as well, just because I thought, but if you want to see like old weapons or like early guns, things like that, they have an armory dedicated to all sorts of weaponry. If you have a small...
And how far is Caserta?
It's about a 45 minutes. I think it's on the train. It's about a 45 minutes on the train. There is also a bus there, but I think the train's easier. That's something, it's an awkward all day because it's such a big place. I mean, it's such a big place that even if you're not going to walk the land, it's still going to take a minute to be there. So it's a little bit, I would recommend kind of preparing for that. Same thing with Pompeii. It's just functionally smaller than Caserta, but it would still take.
You're going to be there all day. There's so much to see.
So those are the major ones. And the next one we'll talk about Capri, Ischia, Procida, Sorrento, Positano, etc., etc. I just slipped into a little Italian accent there for y'all.
Eccetera.
I did not do a great Italian accent, apparently. Eccetera, eccetera.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for listening. Tanti abbracci.